being a debtor to a creditor on the international stage, largely due to loans extended to allied powers. However, domestically, the war still served the key function of justifying massive federal borrowing and the expansion of the money supply via the Federal Reserve. Here's how Griffin explains it. The war allowed the newly formed Fed to prove its usefulness, not by stabilizing the economy, but by enabling large-scale government borrowing. Patriotism was leveraged to inspire people not only to accept, but to get excited as war bonds and Liberty loans were issued in unprecedented quantities. And these bonds were purchased not just with savings, but with money created by the Fed and commercial banks. This created inflation and shifted real wealth from the public to financial institutions, especially as wartime price controls, taxes, and bond campaigns absorbed the cost through citizen sacrifice while banks made guaranteed returns.
It's fucking crazy. Everybody loses but the bank. You know what that sounds like? A fucking casino. Hold on, I gotta check something. Can you give me the complete rate of inflation in the United States from 1776 to present? Estimates suggested inflation was around 1.4% per year, meaning prices rose roughly 36 times between 1776. Cumulative inflation about 3,576%, bro. Inflation during the Revolutionary War peaked at 29.8%, 1778, the highest on record. Let's see, though. Starting in 1913, 1914, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics began regularly tracking CPI-based inflation. So look, the ChatGPT just proved it. We didn't fucking even worry about fucking this stat or statistic of inflation until after the Fed was created. They needed to track their shit so that way they knew when to inflate it and when to deflate it. A detailed table from 1914 to May 2025 is available via U.S. inflation calculator showcasing monthly. And also, for example, 22.8% plus 4%, 2% negative to April, down 2.3%. That's interesting. Look, it's down 2.3% in to April right now. Interesting. What's this? Let's see. It does it by month, bro. Dang. Okay, no. Is there any way to fucking do a total? Just don't have or average. Okay, well, average 1, 1, 7, 4. Look at this, 8. And then look. So you can look there. Boom, inflation inflated. Like fucking look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 straight years of crazy inflation, and then boom, down inflation, and then slowly creep it back and forth. When's the next? Is there another big jump? That's crazy. Right off the bat, though. Boom. Look at they did. Look what they did, bro. So what did it start? 17 to fucking 20. And then big year 40. Interesting, bro. Interesting that 1947 pops up as a big year for inflation, bro. Because, you know, Roswell, right? Like, that's when, like, aliens started showing up more and more, right? Since the supposed aliens, I don't know. I think extraterrestrials exist and also don't exist. So I think that the government, because the government knows extraterrestrials exist, also use fake extraterrestrials to do things to manipulate the population. So it's convoluted. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, that's interesting. And that was the next highest one, right? So 47 was the next highest one, which was 14, where is it? 0.4. And then next biggest one is, look, so the next biggest one is after they supposedly went off the gold standard. They inflated, where'd it go? Damn, bro. Damn, bro. Do you see that? So from 1974, 73, hold on. When was the fucking last one actually? So negative, right? So here's the last negative, 1955. And from 1955, there is some form of average inflation all the way to where? 2009, we get a subtraction. So from 1955 to 2009, there was a steady overall inflation every year. And then it went down point -4, bro. And then look, right back to inflation. Except for right now, look. Well, actually, look. Didn't it say we were actually -2? I think it's lying. ChatGPT said -2, but this shows that it would not be -2. It'd be a +3. 2.3. It'd probably be around 2.3, 2.4. There's inflation every single month so far. Wild, bro. Wild, bro.
In short, even though the US became a creditor globally, the war still entrenched the Fed domestically.
See, okay, he kind of went over it. He didn't like say it how I said. I said like everyone took money from the Fed in the First World War. He basically said it right there.
As an indispensable engine for financing government expansion through inflation. It wasn't just about becoming wealthier. It was about centralizing monetary control. World War II brought even greater expansion, not just of the money supply, but of government power, centralized control, and global financial infrastructure. According to Gray.
Right, and see, the United States was supposed to be a republic, not a democracy. Let that gloss over. It's always been a republic, not a democracy.
Griffin, the war justified.
The word democracy is the lowest form of tyranny. So think about that. On the list of everything that's tyrannical, from the most tyrannical system to the least tyrannical system, democracy is actually the lowest one on that category. So it's the least tyrannical system, yet it's still tyrannical.
Unprecedented level.
And that's why the United States became a republic. Was supposed to anyways.
Of federal borrowing and money creation. Fed enabled the Treasury to issue massive amounts of war bonds yet again, and the public, once more driven by patriotism and fear, absorbed the debt without resistance. The money supply more than doubled during the war years, fueling inflation and post-war economic distortion. Meanwhile, the war effort expanded federal bureaucracy and normalized top-down economic planning, surveillance, and mass propaganda as permanent tools of governance. Bretton Woods put the dollar at the center of global trade.
Look, I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna shout out Tom right here. Glaze him, I guess, whatever you would say on the internet. Is that I don't know how many takes it took him, but he did an excellent job of going to the beat, bro. Because I know he had to. They had to have been playing this beat in the background, bro, just over like this continuous whatever cadence he's going to, right? So that way he could hit on point. You can tell he's doing it. I know because I make music and all these things, so I'm not gonna explain how I know in detail. I just know what I'm talking about. Like, you could tell that he's doing this because of how he, like, extenuates, damn it, what's the word I'm looking for? Accentuates the words he's saying.
Allowing politicians and bankers to steal not only from U.S. citizens, but globally from anyone who holds dollars. If you've ever heard the phrase, we export our inflation, this...
Like, think of it this way, bro. I can let the fucking talk to any song ever, and I will always be going to beat. Because I logistically talk rhythm and rhyme. And I'm not joking. Like, I have caught myself, or someone has caught me, speaking in rhyme. I'm just talking to them like I'm talking to you right now, but I will rattle off like 7 or 8 bars. They all rhyme together, but I'm just speaking regular sentences. They just happen to come out in rhyme form. Do you see what I mean? So, because from the moment I started writing again, for lyrics at 28. I've never stopped, and I cannot get it out of my brain. It like just happens. I don't even think about it anymore. It just is what it is.
This is what people are referring to. And this is why being the world's reserve currency is so valuable. You get to soak the whole world. And Vietnam? Griffin argues it was never about winning. It was about spending. Deficits exploded, the gold standard cracked, and when Nixon finally severed the dollar entirely from gold in 1971, it wasn't betrayal, it was fulfillment. The creature had been unchained. From then on, every bomb drop meant money printed. Every conflict meant new contracts. Every dollar created meant more.
Hence why that the Rothschild global banking cartel is attempting to get into the last 3 countries on earth that doesn't have a central bank. Because see, they cannot create a one world government until they control all the money in all the countries of all the world. That's the only way they can create, because you have to comprehend the 3 countries that don't have a central bank are basically, it's like they're kind of like decentralized Bitcoin. Like they're like Bitcoin. Like the government really has no control. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's decentralized, right? And so that's why it's imperative for Bitcoin actually to take off before all the governments of the world have the ability to force these other governments into being a one world government by the financial, because see, they have to control the money supply in all those countries to be able to fuel that. Once they get those countries right, then they can do the whole fake alien invasion thing, if that's even a thing. I don't know. It's CIA, FBI, all bunch of fucking shit that they wrote. I didn't write none of that shit. I didn't make it up. I just know it's possible, right? So like they can't do any of that stuff though, because they need those countries to fall to the central cartel banking system of the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and all those fuckers.
More power for the banks and for the government. Even the looming threat of the Cold War justified continued military spending, surveillance, and political control. This is why, Griffin argues, satire or not, the report from Iron Mountain got it right when it argued that peace is dangerous to our current economic and political system. Without war, or some equivalent massive unifying threat, the monetary machine stalls. That's one of the primary reasons why the national debt rarely shrinks, why budgets always grow, and why the
Rarely shrink. We just looked at it. I think he's under justifying how rarely it shrinks. We just looked at how rarely it shrinks. It didn't shrink. Over the course of its history, it shrunk. I didn't see how many times it shrunk, but we looked at it a few times. In the last 50 years, easily, it only shrunk 2 times, and it was less than 1%.
The answer to every crisis is more deficit spending. Since the creation of the Fed, war is no longer just about military victory. It's about money and control. And in a fiat system backed by nothing but confidence in the government, fear is the only real currency. Welcome to part 5.
Restream's
commercial
uploading stream is how podcasters, fashion and beauty streamers, fitness coaches.
The end game.
Okay. I definitely know I haven't made it this far. I'm pretty sure I'm past the part that I made it to the other day. All I know is, yeah, it's
Global domination.
Look how long this video is, bro, and look how much stuff he's talked about, bro. It's insane how much worse it gets over the last 25 years versus the last 100 years before that, almost. You know what I'm saying? Like, 87 years?
Through debt. In 1980, the total debt of all developing nations was $609 billion. By 2020, it was over 11 trillion.
Hold on, what did he say?
20 debt of all game. Global domination through debt. In 1980, the total debt of all developing nations was $609 billion.
Of all, do you hear that? All developing 9 billion. Oh my goodness,
By
bro.
2020, it was over 11 trillion.
Crazy.
And yet somehow they're poorer, not richer. The money was real, the projects were funded, but the countries, more debt, less sovereignty, no escape. This is not a bug in the system. It is the goal. Entire countries chained in debt, freedom surrendered, resources stripped away. All
That's the cartel moving from country to country to get these central banks.
all by the stroke of a banker's pen. This is the part where the story gets global. What began on Jekyll Island didn't stay in America. It metastasized. It scaled. It turned into a planetary operating system enforced through debt and disguised as development. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, two institutions that claim to lift nations out of poverty, in reality, they operate like global loan sharks with better branding. Here's the playbook. A developing nation faces a crisis. The IMF or World Bank steps in, offering loans with strings attached. But the loans don't go to the people. They go to corrupt governments, mega projects, or foreign contractors. The result? The country is now in debt, the economy gets restructured, subsidies cut, wages frozen, assets privatized, and when the bill comes due, the people pay with inflation, austerity, and lost sovereignty.
Right, like, you know, there's like 8 billion people in the world, you know? Like, you know, like, there's 8 billion people. Think about it. There's 8 billion people. And yet, all of us follow these rules. Because, why? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, the people that made the rules are no better or different than you. So why are they allowed to make the rules and you're not allowed to make the rules? Or even be mad or upset or go against or do anything about them making rules. So when they make rules you don't like, you can't do anything about it. Like, do you see how psychologically damaging that is for most of the population to be in? To think that you have no ability to stand up and go, hey, fuck you. I'm not going to do that because it's not right. It's wrong. Like, taxation is theft. It's wrong. They're stealing money from everyone. Like, think of it this way. If everyone figured out that they've been stolen from, like, their family lineage, right? So think about, like, my family and however long it's been in America, right? I don't know, because I don't know my history like that. I know, like, it originates from, like, Europe, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my grandma's last name is, like, whole British crest and thing in Europe and shit and Britain and, like, all that stuff, right? And I'm, like, part Irish, right? So, anyways, sidetrack. They are going to continuously try to put everyone in debt more and more. I'm not really in debt. I have some debt, but it's nothing I have to worry about because, see, I read the rules, right? So think of it this way, right? Like, if you owe someone something, let's say, like a credit card, and then that credit card, like, you don't pay it, right? And you don't pay it, and, like, they keep sending you bills, right? From the credit card company, the actual company, right? Now, let's say you don't pay that, and then you start getting letters from, like, this other company saying that they bought out your credit card debt and resumed a responsibility, and then that you now owe them blah 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 money, right? Well, in actuality, based on the rules, you don't owe them anything because they took over the debt. They took responsibility for the debt, and so if you pay that creditor, you're actually being scammed.
This isn't humanitarian aid, it's economic colonization. After World War II, the Bretton Woods system was created to rebuild the global economy. But what it really did was put the US dollar at the center of everything. Every major currency was pegged to the dollar, and the dollar was pegged to gold temporarily. In
Comprehend, I'm still paying debt, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Anything I pay for, everything I've ever paid for ever has all been paid with debt. I've never paid anything with non-debt money. I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm just throwing that out there.
1971, Nixon cut the dollar's linked gold, like I mentioned before, and that broke the global gold standard. But the dollar stayed dominant. Why? Because oil-producing nations agreed to sell oil in dollars only, creating the petrodollar system.
So look, they were like, oh shit, the dollar's not tied into anything anymore, and we're starting to lose control over it. Like, people didn't want to deal with it no more, right? So do you see what they did? They tied it to something that everyone's forced to be using currently, right? Which is oil. Something we also don't need, really, for many things. Not as much as we actually need it for, right? So there is no need to make it this, but, like, this is why this was created, is so that way the dollar stays the most dominant currency to keep everybody else in control.
Now, every country needs dollars to buy energy, and that means every country needs access to US-backed credit. And who controls that credit? The central banking cartel,
The
anchored
Fed.
by the Fed, administered through global institutions, and protected by force when necessary.
So you got to think about it this, right? The banking system created the Fed as a private institution so that way they could lend money through this private institution to the government and then control the government through the banking system. Do you see how the cycle works?
Necessary. This isn't speculation, it's a pattern, a structure. The Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, Griffin argues these aren't think tanks, they're steering committees, groups of unelected elites shaping global policy to centralize power. Not every member is in on it, but the agenda is clear: dissolve national sovereignty.
I would say 99% of the people there are in on it. Like, the only people that really aren't in on it is like maybe like the cameraman people. Like, they don't even know what they are told what they think that is going on there, and that's what it looks like to these people, right? So like some people, yes, I agree, probably are not in on it, but the way they're brainwashed to look at it before they ever enter that building, they don't see what actually happens anyways, because brainwashing is mind control. Mind control is controlling your senses. One of your senses is what you see out of your eyeballs, and you don't see anything out of your eyeballs. You actually see with your visual cortex, which is in the back of your brain. Eyeballs only transfer light information. They don't see anything. So do you see how you're already manipulated if you think you see with your eyeballs?
Consolidate economic control and engineer a single global authority. And they don't need military conquest to do it. Debt is enough. Debt is the leash, and central banking is the hand that holds it. Even ideology gets weaponized. Take environmental.
On a side note, that coworker I got into it with the other day because I had a mental meltdown because my job is intensely crazy, difficult, right? So I called him a debt slave. Like, I was calling him a mental slave and a debt slave like multiple times. He's like, "You're always crying when things get hard." Bro, this dude does not know my life, bro. Like, at all, bro. He thinks like, dude, I work harder than anybody else in that building. Like, think of it this way. I've gotten so good at my job that I can logistically take care of my 3 trucks, go to the end, catch all my go backs, grab them, bring them back, and catch all of his go backs that he misses. Think about that. So the guy that I got into it, he does the 3 trucks in front of me. Every single one of his misses. Every single one of the misses of the truck in front of him. Every single, pretty much every single, it depends on the size of the box, right? And the timing, right? If I can catch it or not. Because if it's like 100-pound box, bro, and it's like in the center of the belt, bro, and I'm got 5 boxes that for 3 different trucks that I have to grab in that very same moment, I'm going to let it go, right? Obviously, but if I can grab it, I'm going to put it right under the belt, and the dude that's right in front of me, I just give them right back to him, right? Well, see, he got into it with me now. He doesn't get that he got into it with someone who will turn them into non-existent. Like, if you get into it with me, bro, in a certain way, bro, I will snap my fingers in my brain, bro, and you will no longer motherfucking exist. I will stare directly at you and look right through you like you're not even there, bro. Like, I have no issues doing that to anyone, right? That wants to try to cause dysfunction in my life because they think they're better than me in any fucking way, shape, or form. When I absolutely 100% know that you are me and I am you, and there is no difference between us, really. Our environment, education, and mental indoctrinations from the system of mental false imprisonment has deduced us into these paradigms of divisions that aren't real. My bad. Was that a crazy rant? Okay, yeah, it was a little bit.
Of course we should protect the planet. But as Griffin points to in his discussion of the report from Iron Mountain, in a world without war, governments need a reason to control populations. They're going to use substitutes like environmental catastrophe, real or imagined. It's not that environmental
Pandemic.
concerns aren't real. It's that they're
I'm actually allowed to say that now and not get in trouble because, like, for years, you weren't allowed to say that.
being used, co-opted, turned into pretext for centralization.
Which is thought police, which is 1984 newspeak.
And the funding for this new world order, same as always. Central banks, fiat money.
Another thing that he slips up right here. He says new world order. This, well, hold on. What? How do you say
Debt.
it?
And the funding for this new world order,
No, he
same
said
as
it right.
always. Central banks, fiat money, debt. You are on
Like, comprehend, you were born into the system called the new world order. Like, a lot of people think, oh, they're trying to make the new world order. No, the new world order is trying to make a one world order. And that's actual the timeline you're in. And now think of this. At least probably 100 million people in the United States think that the new world order is about to happen and hasn't happened yet, and that they're still trying to fight against the new world order that already happened before they were alive. So do you see how in that perspective, how skewed your perspective is if you think something that already happened to you before you were alive is about to happen, and you think it hasn't happened yet? That's a psychological, like, you're insane. Like, do you see what I'm saying? People don't get it.
drugs, another illusion. Trillions spent, freedom eroded, civil liberties gutted, and the drugs still flow. Griffin suggests the system isn't failing, it's succeeding because the chaos funds the machine. Black budgets, intelligence networks, geopolitical leverage. This isn't a malfunction, this is the design. This isn't about helping poor countries, protecting the planet, or fighting crime. It's about building a global system where
They are criminals. Why would they be worried about fighting crime?
control is centralized and sovereignty is surrendered. The mechanism that enslaves individuals through inflation is now scaled to enslave nations through debt.
And you gotta think, bro, like, seriously, I call people in real life debt slaves, and they laugh at me like I'm telling them a joke. Like, they laugh like it's not real, like it's not possible. Dude, every single dollar that's ever been printed says for debt, both public and private.
You can even recreate any image you
commercial.
see on the internet. Just upload your own content and it will match the style and create.
And
Get out
behind
here.
it all is the same cartel that was born on Jekyll Island. Only now it doesn't just control the US, it's attempting to control the world. If the truth is really this sinister,
I like he's doing a great deep dive. Like, you gotta comprehend, I'm pretty sure, like, other than this book and how he's referencing from this book, that's why he's able to tell a story. For the most part, I knew about all of this, except for certain little key things that the book held that I didn't know.
how is it that
'Cause I
people
didn't know the book
tolerate it? Why
existed.
isn't there open revolt? Welcome to part 6, psychological warfare.
Bro, I didn't even know there was a part 6. I thought there was only 5 parts. Holy shit. Okay. Yeah. See, look. And then if you reverse engineer this section, so this is the section, bro. This is the section. If you reverse engineer this, you're going to come to find the same thing I know about language manipulation.
How they keep you blind and obedient. Regardless of which study you look at, only somewhere between 16 and 20% of Americans understand how the Federal Reserve actually works.
Okay, check it out. In the court of law, the word understand means to stand under someone else's rules, regulations, policies, statutes, laws that they are following. That's why a cop is required to get you to say that you understand what that cop is telling you. Because the moment you tell that cop you understand what he is telling you, you have now agreed to all the rules he is following or stands for. That means your constitution is now stripped from you. Do you see what I'm saying?
When the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell himself, was asked what the benefit of 2% inflation is, for instance, his answer was somewhere between vague and nonsensical.
For those working families of people, why 2%?
That has become the globally agreed, essentially all major central banks target 2% inflation in one form or another.
How does that help my Nevada families? How does that help people in Nevada?
I'll tell you how it does. And it's I guess it's obviously not, it's not obvious how that is, but to have people
This person was elected? Who is this guy?
People believe that inflation is going to go back to 2%. Really,
Oh, he's not elected. He's just some pundit for the cartel or something, like, you know, like the banking card. And he has no clue. Do you see what I'm saying? He a puppet, bro. He's only told basic knowledge, bro. He ain't told nothing that needs to be told to him.